Cold, 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 cold up here in Boston. I have been ice cold for the first time. I think I've gone a couple of weeks without even hitting 1 out of 2, which is usually what I love to do here on Doubling Down. My name's Colin, Sheehan. This is Doubling Down, where we put together daily double tickets. Last week, if you followed Vinny's picks, though, Vinny put together the winning daily double tick. We're going to go back to Keeneland, who are very takeout friendly with their daily double, and it's something to pay attention to. Last week, I went with Magic Mischief. Vinny warned me, and we're going to play what Vinny said because it has influence on this week's show.
It wouldn't surprise me if he's just much better than everybody else. But like, if he shipped Buick, I probably would single him here, to be honest with you. That is just something I've noticed the last few years with Appleby. Is like when he ships like Buick over to ride, they're pretty good. When he has to use one, when he uses another jockey or he doesn't put Buick on him, it's the horse doesn't always win.
That was what Vinny said last weekend. I didn't listen. Vinny made the right choice. Of course, Appleby had Tyler Gaffleone aboard. This week, though, we're going to go back to that angle on Doubling Down.
Trust the Profits is proud to be sponsored by Game of Silks. Go to silks.io to get in the game. Real ownership, real races, real rewards.
Welcome one, welcome all. This is Doubling Down, sponsored by the Game of Silks. Tim, guess what? I not only enjoyed bringing you on this week because of Keeneland, and sure, we're talking about Saturday's races, but keep your eye on Hawthorne because the speedy one makes his return to the track on Saturday.
All right, looking forward to it. I remember New Year's Eve, we were there minting that baby. Let's get it done.
That's it. He's sticking in the maiden special weight race. It's for $32,000. So pay attention to the speedy one, who is morning line 6-1. I believe it's race 7 at Hawthorne on Saturday. So while we'll divert our attention on this show over to Keeneland, of course, Game of Silks, paying out real rewards. I'm going to have a show coming up of how much money they've paid out on the Derby Trail. It's quite impressive. And we have some runners running on Saturday in the Lexington that will also have some owners attached to Game of Silks to make some of that money. Tim, you survived the weekend with the Profits. How we doing?
Doing outstanding. It's the Keeneland Spring Meet. How are you doing anything other than outstanding, right? And we had a great time out at Keeneland. We missed you. You weren't there. Couldn't be in there this time. But so I was like, when I got the invitation to come to Doubling Down and we were talking Keeneland, I was like, all right, last weekend we spread some Keeneland love with the other Profits. This week, let's spread a little love with Colin.
I definitely had some FOMO as I watched you guys in the chat, although the chat was kind of quiet. Me and the formula are going, are you guys alive? What's happening? But I know how that happens when you get to the track with a bunch of people that you've talked to for over a year and you finally get together and you have some great memories, which is such a key part of this game. If you can get out to anywhere, I'm going to be at Saratoga for Belmont Stakes. We're talking about maybe going to Pennsylvania Derby, and I might even have Kentucky Downs on my radar for September. So if you are out there and you're planning to go to a track this year, put it in the comments and let's see if we can maybe get together another meetup. Because I hear of all the debauchery that happened at Keeneland. We want to have some of that up in Saratoga this year. So meet me on Belmont Stakes weekend. Tim, we got ourselves an interesting Doubling Down this week with first going race 9, which you had just said to me is actually the marquee race. For so long, we've followed the 3-year-olds and we've been following the trail to the Derby. This week, you go to the Lexington, which winner only gets 20 points. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But prior to the Lexington, we get a nice field of 10 in race 9 for April 13th. They're going a mile and a 16th. This is the grade 1, Jenny Miley for fillies and mares, 4-year-old and up. Now, I played that intro. Tim, don't make the mistake. Listen to Vinny. Where are we going in the Jenny Miley? Wiley.
Jenny Wiley. So the grade 1, Jenny Wiley on the turf. So on the grass. So I do have a little bit of a concern.
Oh, there's just a flutter of like a nutty Edam cheese.
Did you do that?
No.
All right. So we're going to have to cut that.
No, I love it. Let's leave it in. Keep going. Who do you like in a Jenny Wiley?
That was funny. But anyway, so You know, I've got a little bit of a concern this weekend for the turf races because we got a whole lot of rain here in Kentucky today. The forecast for tomorrow is for rain all day. We're going to get rain for a good portion of Friday, and then it should trail off. Now, the weather for the weekend is going to be absolutely beautiful. So there is a chance that the track dries up a little bit prior to the Jenny Wiley. There are two other races, one turf sprint and 1 mile and a 16th maiden special weight race scheduled on the turf before the Jenny Wiley. So I think that maybe there's a chance they take those races off, in particular the sprint. Those are the ones they usually like to take off because it tears the track up a little more than the routes do. But maybe with the weather being really nice, they can get the Jenny Wiley on the turf. But depending on how this rain goes on over the next 2 days, I am a little concerned about that. But I will say this, when I handicapped the race, and I talked to you about going back and forth on a couple of horses before we came on the air. I do like English Rose. I did note in here that Appleby is bringing in Billy Buick, as El Hombre likes to call him. So he is bringing him in to ride. And this is a horse. She's very interesting to me. But you know what? I just kept going back to last weekend. And it was like I was on European first-time starter after European first-time starter after European first-time starter, and I think 3 or 4 of them, and every one of them burned me, and I'm not sure any of them finished in the money that I can recall. So I decided to go elsewhere. And, you know, the other thing about this horse is first time in the United States. Keeneland's a little bit different. The turf course is nice there, but I'm going outside to the 9-horse Didia. That was an amazing race that the horse run last time out in the Pegasus World Cup, Philly Mare Turf Invitational, finishing first with Jose Ortiz up. She is 4 for 4 at this distance. Jose getting back up is a good sign for me. I will tell you, he was riding his butt off last weekend. So he's already had 5 winners on the card last weekend. I did not see how he did today to see if he improved that, honestly, before we came on. But I like this mare a lot. And I'm going to actually single Diddy in here. There is one other horse that I think you have to talk about here. If you're talking about Keeneland and you're talking about fillies and mares on the turf, Gina Romantica is one I think you have to look at. Chad Brown, Tyler Gaffalione, the perennial jockey leader when it comes to Keeneland. They gave him his trophy this past weekend for winning the jockey title again last year. He got off to another great start this past weekend. This is a horse. If she runs back to her speed figure, she obviously has the speed to win in here. But here's your angle, Colin, and I'll let you speak. She's coming out of the Breeders' Cup as her last race, first start of the year.
Yeah, an angle I touted so hard last year, and then I got off of that. And if I only listened to myself with Fierceness this year, whose first race back off the Breeders' Cup was the exact example of, they just get so keyed up for that race, and then the first time back is just not as strong. I'm going to give you some Race Lens angle of the week. I've started using Race Lens, Tim. This thing is amazing in being able to find the angles that you're looking at. And of course, it's not going to predict the future for you, but just to give you a little sense of how good is Charlie Appleby when he brings in a shipper on the turf with Billy Buick, as you called him. 44% win, 88% in the money, 31% ROI. I mean, this is just a positive all around. Last 2 years, one back when using Buick, 100% in the money, 50% of those are winners. This is just an angle that I don't think you can ignore. And I was absolutely had this singled, especially after what Vinny said last week, especially after what I played here in the beginning of the show. But then when you added Didia, I couldn't ignore. I just, man, that's such a cool horse. She does such a, she's one of my favorite horses right now. And I was going back and forth. And when let's not lie, you had English Rose singled when you sent me your ticket earlier this morning. So I said, no, I agree. And then when you added the 9, I said, no, I'm not going to let you beat me with the 9 and me not have Didia on there as well. She just always shows up, as you mentioned, right? I mean, this horse, you're going to get an honest effort from her. $282,000 winning so far just this year. Obviously, that's from the big win in the Pegasus. From a pace scenario, we're going to look at the Race Lens. And Gina Romantica is the horse that it basically sees on the front end, but you'll see the win percentage there is nodded towards the Appleby horse number 5 with a 30% win percentage. A little bit spread out. Looks like it foresees Gina Romantica being on the front end, a little bit of a by herself. I'm not sure. Do you kind of feel that she's going to get that easy of a lead? Because Diddy is the one that's going to sit right off. I think for sure. And the 7 will be Surge Capacity, who's also a lot of horses that kind of just like to sit off of a leader. So this actually makes sense to me.
It really does. And you know, Colin, this is exactly why I went to Didia, because looking at how the track was playing, and I went back and watched again a couple of the races from this past weekend, speed is not holding on the turf. Okay, speed is not holding on the turf. The dirt track was really fast. The sprint races were really fast and lead favoring, but in the route races on the turf, speed was not holding at all. So the horses were coming from a little further back. So I do think, despite the fact that Didia showed a little early speed in that last one, if you look at what she has typically run in her 10 wins out of 15 races, she is typically a little bit back, just like that pace scenario showed. And I think she gets the perfect trip in here. And I love that. And like I say, with Jose on board and the way he's riding right now, I just couldn't ignore 10 wins and 15 lifetime starts.
We move on to the, I guess not the marquee event. I'm so used to saying that for the second leg of our show, but tonight we'll go to the second leg, which is the Lexington Stakes. This is your last chance for points if you're trying to make your way into the Kentucky Derby gate. Here is your owners in Game of Silks. That purse is $4,250, real money. We've only got 4 owners actually out of this field. So we've seen quite a few in the last couple, Arkansas, Florida Derby. We had a whole list of Silks owners. So a little light on this race, but that is real money that will be up for grabs. Tim, I wanted to point this out to people because I think it's important to notice. Remember 2 fills last year in the Lexington, the Kentucky Derby standings. You got your top 20 there in white, okay? Then we're going to go to the 4 horses that I pegged here who, with a win, will put themselves right in the mix. Hades has 30 points. Right now the bar is 40. You got to figure a couple of those are going to come out. We know Timberlake's not going to go on. Endlessly is a question. So, not necessarily an exact science, but these are the 4, Hades, Encino, Liberal Arts, and Lucky Jeremy, who are coming into this race to win it, to get in, I would think, right? I mean, that is the plan for Hades. It was very clear in what they said the intentions were. So, they're bringing it with Hades. I think Hades is a horse who I had picked in the Florida Derby. I know that obviously was a slap in my face, but he had a trouble trip in there. It got in behind some traffic and just didn't get clear like he did in the Fountain of Youth. Knowing that this is kind of the goal for a horse, now they've added blinkers. This trainer's 7% the last 2 years with that. I'm hoping that Hades is going to get back to why I liked him in the Florida Derby, which is the race that we saw in the Fountain of Youth. And I'm going to include him on my ticket. How about you?
I'm definitely including the horse, and I totally agree with everything you said. And I went back and watched that race a couple of times, and I really like that head-on view, because if you look at the head-on view of the Florida Derby, you see Hades come out, and basically he veered to the outside and bounced off the 3, and then he had speed over the 1, so he took an angle to the first turn, and his angle wasn't to get outside. His angle was kind of headed towards the rail. And the horses outside of Hades, when you're looking at that head-on view, they took the direct angle right to cut the rail, and Hades got cut off right there, almost bounced off the rail. Really, if you look at that race, Paco had to take him up pretty good, and then got behind a wall of horses, got shuffled all the way to the back, had to make a run. When they hit the stretch, was way outside. I do think that they're bringing this horse in here to get points to get into the Derby. The horse is dangerous. I do have the horse on my ticket here for the doubles, but I've actually got the horse second, and there's a horse I like better on top.
Well, who's that? Don't hold us in suspense.
So the horse I really like in here is Encino.
Me too.
I think Encino is a horse that's really intriguing to me. I know the John Battaglia. When you look at Encino, 3 for 3, races on the synthetic, hasn't raced yet on the dirt, but this is a Godolphin horse out of Nyquist. I mean, the breeding says it's there. I don't think Brad Cox puts up Florent Giroux up on this ride. Concepcion's been riding this horse up at Turfway. I just think this horse is bred to handle the dirt very well. And these works at Keeneland tell me that's true. So if you look at that 4 furlong work on the 6th of April, 48-1, 4th of 131 on the day. I mean, this horse can handle the dirt. This horse definitely has that. If you watch that, John Battaglia has that style that I like for this race, and that is sitting off the early speed. I really think that this is a horse that can move forward in this race. Another one, I think that they want to get into the Derby, and those are my 1-2 picks in here. I love Hades, but I'm going to take a little bit of a shot with Encino on top, but I've got them both on my doubles ticket.
Yeah, and I realized I said 2 fills. I was thinking the Battaglia with 2 fills. It was First Mission who won this race last year and then moved forward in the Preakness.
And similar to this, right? Similar to Encino.
Exactly. And Encino, for me, some things that I pointed out, you're getting Florent Giroux, right? So scratched out of the Bluegrass. Brett Cox, I think that was scratched by Cox. I think that's a plan.
Right.
And was third. Had Epic Ride. Epic Ride finished really well, I thought, in the Bluegrass. And this was a horse that was right behind Encino in that John Battaglia. So when you start playing that 7 degrees of separation, those are 2 angles that I had circled as far as why I want to include Encino on my ticket. To be honest, I actually had this ice cold English Rose into Encino. And then going back through the ticket, I did decide to add like I said, Hades, who we've already touched upon, and then I am going to give Liberal Arts another shot here. This is a horse I have been attracted to. I know that the Oaklawn Arkansas Derby was not good, and that's a circuit that I don't think is strong at all. So that 7 degrees of separation is not an angle I'd use here on Liberal Arts, because if you are, you can use that rate against me. However, I'm really intrigued by adding Irad Ortiz Jr. on the horse here. No disrespect to the jockeys that have been riding Liberal Arts, but Liberal Arts also had a very troubled trip in that Arkansas. On that backstretch, suddenly there was one horse that you knew there was a problem because it was all of a sudden in the middle and all of a sudden was in the back. And that was the number 5, which was Liberal Arts. And so let's add Irad Ortiz. I think this horse who, using Equibase speed figures, they have just continued to improve. So I think there's no reason not to expect that maybe there's another improvement coming. A Sire of Arrogate, can't go wrong there. I'm going to use Liberal Arts on my ticket as well. So I'm going to use the 5, 8, and the 9. I also did make note here, you don't have a lot of early speed, although Lucky Jeremy would one that I might be interested in. You have one more on your ticket that you didn't mention, or 2 more.
Right. I did have Liberal Arts. So that was one. And I won't talk anymore. I don't have anything more to say than what you said. And I totally agree with all of that. And Irad is intriguing getting up. That's not a trainer he normally rides for. So my 4th horse that I'm going to add in here is the Wine Steward. So you've got, Mike Maker train, Luis Saez getting back up. If you go back to October, and I know it is quite a layoff for this horse, but this is a horse that ran really well at Keeneland in the Breeders' Futurity, grade 1 back in October. The horse seems to be working very well. I really like that 30 March workout, that 5 furlong at Churchill. I think that's a really good work. Maker gets his horses ready. I don't think he'd be running in the spot with the Wine Steward. If you go back and look at some of the Wine Steward's early races, obviously he started out 3 for 3 and then had that second in the Breeders' Futurity. But this is a horse I've been waiting to see get back on the track. So I am not going to let a horse like this beat me. I honestly think it's an underneath play in in verticals, but if I'm going to play a double, this is the horse that scared me. And when I looked at this race, Colin, I just thought these 4 horses were head and shoulders above everybody else. Lucky Jeremy in here is a horse I looked at a lot. When I was looking at Lucky Jeremy's last race, I mean, I actually had Lucky Jeremy in that race. I didn't think he ran very well at all. The thing about the race to me is, this horse to me is, I think he wants to be on the lead, and I don't think that's the place to be on Keeneland in this these route races right now. I think you want to be just off of that speed. Plus, I think there's a couple others that might show a little bit of early speed up there. And Lucky Jeremy is the one that when you were talking about pace scenario earlier in the other race, this is a horse that came to mind that probably wants the lead in this one.
Yep, and Race Lens would agree with you. As you can see, it has Lucky Jeremy on the front end along with the number 6, How's Your Attitude? And Tim, you nailed it from a win percentage standpoint, because the same 4 that you said is the exact same 4 that Race Lens has there with the 2, 5, 8, and 9. They actually also put Encino on top. The angle that I pulled out of this race was trainer John Orsino, who trains Hades, is bringing Hades back, obviously, very quickly. 7 to 14 days after the last race of the past 2 years on the dirt, only 7% win percentage and a minus 85 ROI. I'm going to try to find a nice positive and negative angle to include into doubling down each week now. I think it adds a little something new to handicapping. I try to keep it fresh on this show as far as voices and angles. And if you have an angle that you rely on, I'd love to put it in the chat, because I'd love to do a little challenge here. What's an angle that you, the viewers, think is great? We all got that friend that's like, oh, always play the gray horse, or always play whatever, you know. Put it in the chat. I'll run the stats for you, and next week I'll pick one, and we'll see how good of an angle it is that you have. So just throw it in the chat, and I'll respond, and we'll bring that to the show as a kind of a new little part of the segment, as something to have fun with, Tim, right? We got to keep it fresh for the viewers, as they say.
Absolutely. I love it. I love a lot from what I'm seeing at Racelands. Actually, it was something that a couple of people at Keeneland this past weekend asked me if I was using Racelands, if I had used it at all. So definitely something I'm going to be taking a look at a little bit.
Yeah, they have a free race every day, so you can go in and start to click around on whatever race that is and get a little sense. And I'm going to try to incorporate a little bit more in my show as we try something new. I'm always open to learning and always open to trying new things. So you can check them out as part of Equibase.com. Tim, let's check out those tickets. Mine got a little bit more expensive since when I started this morning, but I'm going to go 5 with the 9 with the 589. It'll cost you $6. Tim's going to single Didia. Not a bad choice, although Vinny would disagree, and go 2, 3, 5, 8 in your Lexington Stakes for $4. Tim, on the lounge this week?
Absolutely. So stop by the lounge tomorrow night if you're going to be there. Obviously, Turfway ended last week with Keeneland starting up this past weekend. So I believe we're going to go to Evangeline Downs tomorrow night, but look forward to seeing everyone in the lounge. Obviously, we were at Keeneland last Thursday, so we didn't get a chance to do the lounge. So I'm really excited to get back in there. And the fun thing is we're going to get to talk to a lot of people in the chat that we got to meet this weekend. So looking forward to actually type into the names that now I can see the face in my head.
That makes it so much better. You guys are slacking. You missed 2 out of 3 weeks now after going like a year straight. So
don't say that.
We hope for some straight episodes in a row. My name's Colin Sheehan. He's Tim at Riders Up on your X or Twitter, whatever you're calling it these days. This week, after Saturday, we'll have the top 20 in points. So look for Sunday or Monday. We're going to put out an early look at your Kentucky Derby, and the Derby content will be on fire from here. We'll give you cases for and against all the contenders. We'll give you spotlights on all the contenders. We'll have a round table. Anything that we can come up with, it's coming your way. So please hit that subscribe button. Until next time, good luck, everybody.